officials say they'll keep a close eye on the city of Gainesville finances after expressing disappointment with how commissioners are handling taxpayer money.
TV20's Lali Salache tells us why one member of the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee is looking into whether city leaders violated sunshine laws.
When you actually increase your budget, I don't see that as a bold action at all. I'm very disappointed.
2 hours of heated discussion. The state committee voted 6-4 in favor of carrying out a follow-up audit after addressing how City of Gainesville commissioners are handling taxpayer money.
And I have very strong feelings that there were sunshine violations here in the past actions of the Commission of Gainesville.
While other members disagreed with the motion.
Yes, they're working. Things were corrected. We have partial things that are not done, but they're working toward doing better.
GRU's debt is currently $1.8 billion, and the Reichert House closed in May as part of the city's effort to reduce spending.
I would say the plan didn't affect it. The plan,
didn't.
So I would say
no, that's fine. It didn't affect it at all. So to hold just put the city at risk for higher interest rates and an increased cost to this bond.
Committee Chair Representative Mike Caruso said he is disappointed in the decision made so far. However, Mayor Harvey Ward says he was instructed by the committee to increase property taxes to address the debt issue.
Members of your committee in the last JLAC meeting admonished us to significantly raise our property taxes by as much as $1 million, I believe was the actual quote. We did as we were instructed, sir.
Few residents were in attendance, sharing they were thankful for the new state-appointed GRU Authority Board. A motion made by Representative Peggy Gossett-Seidman calls for the State Auditor General to investigate any violations of Sunshine Law regarding a delay of a GRU debt issue, resulting almost $3 million of additional costs to GRU ratepayers. Lali Salache, TV 20 News.